There you go. Sorry, I was just trying to find the button. It's there.
Okay, thanks, Grant. So I think there's basically a few things that, regardless, you you have to start with. So I would say that if you look at how we lay a foundation, you have to dig a hole, and so we need to be able to hold our drumsticks properly. That would be the first phase. Most people would be traditional grip. Some people match grip a little bit, and a very small percentage, but certainly noticeable in the pipe band world, would be reverse grip, where you would hold the right stick like we generally hold the left, and we'd hold the left like we generally hold the right, and that kind of thing. So getting the sticks in your hand and being able to move them is sort of like a fundamental thing. So once you've got that, there then becomes what I would consider the 5 basic things that you need to master from the outset. Okay, that would be single taps, buzzes, doubles, paradiddles, and triplets. I throw triplets in because of what they are. But technically speaking, triplets are just singles, really. If there's no accents on the triplet, it just kind of sounds like singles. But we do use the triplet a lot, and it's in all our jigs, and it's in 6/8 marches, 9/8 marches, 12, all that kind of stuff, but in a slightly different format, with a dot cut dot thing, and moving through those basic things is really, really important, because once you learn to do those first 5 things, you then get the opportunity to build on the start of the foundation. Okay, so there's no real set way to do this, I don't think, because everybody learns differently, like all the things, for example, that I was taught when I was a young drummer, like 8, 9 years old. Actually remember all of them. I remember how I was taught them, and I remember who taught me them. I was taught by Willie Bell, or as we would say in Fife, where I'm from, Willie Bell, kind of more with a U as opposed to an I. And he was my teacher. He became my very, very best friend, and was always there, cheering me on and doing many things just in the background, just an all-round good guy. And everything that he taught me, I would say that I still use every single one of them. But the order in which I go about passing that information on is a bit different to the order that he passed it on to me. And I would absolutely say that he wasn't trying to mislead myself or my drumming buddies way back in the day. He was passing on really good information to us, because really good information was passed on to him, if that makes sense. Okay, so when it comes to how we learn and the things that we need to, once you've learned to get a little bit of a handle on singles, buzzes, doubles, paradiddles, and triplets, it's then time to build on some stuff. So technique is the answer to many things. If your technique is strong, things become less cumbersome, or not cumbersome at all. Okay, so we kind of believe in a sort of like you could say a dual approach to working on technique, where you're just playing, for example, taps. Okay, now We also know that when we play, rhythm is very much part of playing drums. And so when it comes to rhythm, what do we have in pipe band drumming that makes us a little bit different? And that would be the use of dots and cuts. Kind of has a swing to it. Often when I'm speaking to people from a different genre, another genre, they always think that some of the pipe band stuff has a kind of nice light jazz swing and feel to it. And so we've always embraced that as being a very positive connection of what they do and what we do. The other one that we do in the pipe band world is we have a lot of these cuts and dots. Not maybe as many cuts and dots as we do dots and cuts, but we have a lot of them. And so that's all foundational. It's kind of laying a little bit of a gentle extra to the foundation, but it's also really working on your technique, because it's giving you a few other things to practice on your technique. And then we would go through more of that stuff, adding accents. Not necessarily the ones you talk with, by the way, but the ones that you make when you play notes louder. Okay? So that kind of stuff is all really, really important, and it's all kind of foundational based. It's all there to strengthen your technique. And then once we get through some of that, with just basic taps, we would kind of go through the same thing just using single taps, kind of easy counting little exercises, not getting too wrapped up in it. Now, those of you who are familiar with the orange book called Taking No Shortcuts, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, 118 pages, and I think when I counted it, there was over 900 lines of exercises. That's intense. Now, one of the things that you would think with a book, you would want to be referring to the book, and I do refer to the book, but when I'm teaching, I don't really care if you pick it up by reading the notes on the book, or if you do it the old-fashioned way like Reed did, and that is listen and watch. That's how I picked up everything. I didn't start reading music or starting to learn to read music until I was 21 years old and had immigrated to Canada, and very quickly found out that, geez, everybody here seems to be able to read music and I cannot. So I just sat down and figured it all out. I didn't particularly find it complicated. 2 notes, one on the right, one on the left, and then just kind of follow along, and that's it. But I've never been an advocate of, yeah, you need to be able to read music to play music, okay? I'll cite a couple of examples, and please, I'm not meaning this in a negative way. I'm meaning this in an incredibly positive way. But one of my favorite musicians would have to be Stevie Wonder. His inability not to see what he can play has not hindered him from playing and writing great music for his entire life. I mean, you know, isn't she lovely and all that kind of great stuff? I mean, isn't it just like unbelievable music? And for many, many years, I've been a great fan of the late guitarist Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I had a few of his albums, and then I got CDs. And I think it might have been the album Texas Flood, where at the very end of the CD, there's a couple of hidden tracks. And one of the hidden tracks is a little bit of an interview where he's been asked about music and how he does it. And does he read music? And he said this most amazing thing. And it's stuck in my head since the first time I heard this, and it would have been, I think, 1994, I heard this, and it was absolutely amazing. And he said, I tried to read music. He said, but I felt that it got in the way. He said, I was always playing, and then every time the bar line would come, I would stop. And so he stopped trying to do that and just focused on playing and delivering music. And I thought, wow, that's absolutely awesome. Just, you know, that he did that. And unfortunately, he left us way too early. But I still love listening to how he plays and how beautiful his music was and still is. It's a real treat to be able to listen to that. So I say to you that the notes on the paper are a guide, but if you get the notes that are on the paper being passed on to you by someone who knows how to do that, that's really good. Because when we play, we have to listen and watch. I have a saying, and some of you who know me well have heard me say this more than once. And the saying is that when my eye confirms what my ear hears, I know you're doing it properly. Okay? So when my eye confirms what my ear hears. You notice how sometimes on social media you'll get little clips going up and somebody's going to play something and you don't click the mic to hear it. I love to be able to identify what they're playing. So, for example, a good friend and someone I'm sure you all know the name, Stephen McQuirter, there'll be a recording up and he's playing something and I like to click on the video but not the audio and see if I can guess what he's playing. And I can guess pretty accurately just by watching because my eye is allowing me to process it up here as well. Call me a geek, I know, I'm a bit of a geek, so. But anyway, I do love doing that kind of thing, but I just wanted to make a point of saying that if you've got players who get intimidated by the notes on a piece of paper, then just encourage them to listen and watch you, because it has served many drummers, pipe band drummers, for a long time. Okay, so as we start to build a foundation, what are the things that make a foundation beyond the 5 things that I mentioned 10 minutes ago? So I would say, how about, as pipe band drummers, to lay a foundation, there's a few things that we should be able to do quite well to get us started. So number 1 would be singles, okay, doubles, yeah, paradiddles, rolls. What about rolls, these things that we play? So when it comes to rolls, there are basic rolls that we play all the time, okay? So 3-pace rolls, 13-stroke rolls, 7-stroke rolls, 9-stroke rolls, 5-stroke rolls, a whole slew of stuff. And if there's one thing that separates us as drummers from other genres, it's the amount of weight and importance that we place as pipe band drummers on the closed roll. Okay, marching band, DCI, all that stuff in the States, which I absolutely love. It's a lot of open double rolls and absolutely fantastic. And I would say that in some of the higher levels in the pipe band world, we use some patterns like that, but not nearly as much as an American rudimental drummer would do when they're playing those open rolls. So the use of the closed roll is really paramount. I mean, if you can imagine, if you walked into the very first time you might have showed up at a band practice hall because you were interested in learning, one thing you would have heard in that room would have been this. 2 3-pace rolls. Everybody knows that, okay? Now, they are so popular and well known that if I played a set of them, even a piper could say to me, and Glenna, please don't take that the wrong way, it's not aimed at you, but even pipers know what they are. They would say, yeah, that's those things that the drummers play before the pipers come in. Absolutely. And they don't need to know the technical term. We call them 25-stroke rolls, we call them intro rolls, we call them whatever. It doesn't really matter, you can give them any name you like. But the 3-pace introduction roll is a really important thing. Now, when I was young and I was learning to play drums, I was taught the 3-pace roll as the finale to all the roll movements that I learned. Now, if you're familiar with my book, you'll notice that the 3-pace roll is the very first roll that I teach. And the roll that I was taught, which was the 5-stroke roll, that was my first roll when I started to learn to play rolls. I teach that last. Why? Well, because it's the hardest. How do I know that? Because I listen to students and I talk with lots of other people who teach. And I've been doing this for a long time. So the 25-stroke roll, I would teach first. Now, when it comes to playing a 25-stroke roll, it's easier to play a 25-stroke roll because you've got more time to think about when the last tap comes in versus a 5-stroke roll. It's no sooner has it started, but you have to stop it. It's very, very fast. 3-pace roll. Okay? Now, in the roll segment and in rolls, how I like to teach them, I like to teach rolls in a way that the ones I think are the easiest, I start first. And the ones I think are hardest, I teach last. So I always start with the 3-pace and I always end with a 5. But I would always tell you that after I've taught a certain way for 2 or 3 months, I question sometimes the order. Like, should I teach that one before that one? Is that really the right one to teach? At the end of the day, we all have to play them. And I tend to teach rolls sort of collectively. And as students pick up certain rolls a little bit quicker, I just let them run with that. Because eventually they're going to have to get the other ones. It also becomes something that as they get better at certain ones, it gets them more confidence, which sometimes is all they need to make the breakthrough into the next role that they learn. So as we laid it out in the book, we laid out 25s, then we laid out 13s, and then we laid out, I think it's 7s. I'm not actually looking at that page right now, and I sort of...
It's up on the screen for everybody, Reed.
There you go. So it goes 25s, 13s, and then it goes 7s, and then it goes 19s, and then when you turn over the page, it goes to 9-stroke rolls, and then it goes to 11-stroke rolls, and just little stuff like that. All those important ones, and then finishing with the 5-stroke roll at the very bottom of the roll, basic roll page. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've always found rather interesting is the space between notes. So in some of the really, really simple tunes that we all know and that pipers play and introduce us to, there's the space between certain notes. The space between certain notes, you should always be able to take a roll and place it between the first and the second note on a melody. So if you were playing, for example, a 13-stroke roll, bum, 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 13. Okay, I'm sort of humming a little bit of what I would call Scotland the Brave here. But let's say you were playing Rowan Tree. Rowan Tree starts with a dotted quarter note and then it goes to an 8th note. Wow, that's quite a space. Bum, bum, bum. Wow, what fits that? Holy smokes. How about a 19? This is a 19. And a few years ago now, I found it rather interesting that a space that is incredibly common in piping melody was for the most part being completely ignored by drummers. I thought that was rather, I wonder why we've done that, because there is a lot of tunes that start or have dotted quarter notes in them, and to fill it with a roll, you know, like for example, like a round tree, or keep the roll movement going, wow, something else. Woo, that's kind of cool. So I kind of like that kind of thing. So you'll notice that I sort of jumped ahead from talking about some taps and things like that and into the roll things because it sets us apart. But I would also say that when I'm trying to get students to work on stuff, I would get them started on paradiddles, and then I'd get them working on a couple of lines of the paradiddles, and then if not in the same lesson, maybe the next lesson, while I'm asking them, hey, how's that paradiddle stuff coming along? And they're trying to play it, I would introduce them to triplets. Some students find triplet phrases and playing of triplets to be easier than paradiddles. I don't really care what they learn to play accurately first. I just like them to play it, you know, because we all have to play it. So sometimes what's happening is simultaneously somebody's working on page 9 and 10 with the paradiddles, and then they're working on 14 and 15 with the triplets. Now, if somebody races through a page on page 15 because it's triplets and they're into it, don't hold them up because they're being a little bit slower in something further back. Don't hold up progress, you know? That's why we have a government. They like to do that, so we don't want to do that, right? So if you keep things in mind that as we're teaching, there are things that certain people will play and they seem to find it easier than the other 4 or 5 people in the class. You ever notice that when you go around the table and you're showing someone something, someone gets the hardest bit first time and they never get it wrong. And you think, oh, this is going to go great. And then you get to the next bit, then you think it's dead easy and they can't get it, but everybody else in the group gets it. That's the challenge. That's what makes it awesome, is how we all find certain things easier or more complex, but you have to get them all anyway, you know. So one of the things I do like to say, going back to the 25-stroke roll, I've been drumming for a long time, about like 57, 58 years, and I've played lots of 3-pace rolls. I've never actually played a 3-pace roll on the left hand in competition or concert. Okay, for the record, we all play them on the right because we live in a right-handed world. 90% of the population is right-handed, so us left-handed guys, myself being a lefty, we just have to go along with the flow, which we're very, very good at doing. It's no big deal. But what I do find really helpful when I'm working with things like rolls, and I'll use a 3-pace roll as an example, and you can filter that all the way through, is when we play, and again, I'll use we live in a right-handed world. Everybody has a stronger right hand than the left. That would be normal, right? If everybody could, I'll address the hockey players in the room right now. If you could shoot right and left with a hockey stick, then the blade would be straight and you would just go up and down the ice and do whatever you liked, you know? But you either have right or left. So in drumming, we have to use both hands. And in a lot of instrumentation, you have to play with both hands as well. Bagpipes would be a classic example, and I'll talk about that just in a second. But when I listen to folks playing rolls, and I'll use the 3-pace roll because it goes on a wee bit longer, just as an example, you'll hear sometimes this. And that's someone who's got a really strong, good right hand and a weak left hand. Now, anybody who's right-handed has a weaker left hand. Anybody. And if you don't, and your left and right are equal, then you're probably ambidextrous, and you represent about 0.2% of the global population. That's very rare. Okay, so when working on rolls or buzzes, if you were just working on, I find it a little bit easier with rolls of a certain duration, and that is because when we play a roll, how do we get that left? How do we bring that sound, that volume up a little bit? Okay, what you don't want to do is you don't want to lessen. So when someone plays a roll like this, I'm giving them an A plus and a gold star for the right hand, and maybe a B for the left hand, right? So how do we make that roll sound better? Well, what we don't want to do is we don't want to take the A plus gold star and make it play a little less so that it doesn't outshine the left, so that you get, so it's now producing the same volume, but it has no meat behind it. So practice the rolls on the other hand. So when you take a 3-pace roll, try practicing them on the left. I find left-handed 3-pace rolls or 25-stroke rolls to be the best technique building exercise that I use. Now let me explain that a little further. Right hand strong. So when you play your rolls, you lead with your strong right hand. But how do I get my left to start to participate more so it can make that nice big beautiful sound that my right does? So how you do that is you put the left in charge. Now when you tell or ask a righty to start his 3-pace roll on the left, panic. Okay, there's probably a, sit down, maybe have a little shot of brandy, whiskey, single malt, I don't know, whatever. But anyway, calm down. It's no big deal. So, but when you ask the left to start, what you're now doing is you're making it the boss. And the boss hand now has to do as it's told. It has to come along for the ride. But because the bossy hand is strong and so used to playing, what it is able to do is it is able to continue to produce a strong sound, but because the left is now in charge, it can play up to that. So it goes from to all of a sudden it's stronger and it makes the left hand work. It is, if you are having problem with any roll, regardless of the duration, your willingness to practice 25-stroke rolls on the left hand as a daily diet will fix so many problems. You will be absolutely flabbergasted, I can guarantee you. It will not only fix all your rolls, but it will give you a strength and confidence in your left hand that will spill into a whole bunch of other rudiments. Because all the rudiments are connected. They're all connected. Okay? So, try not to get caught up on a page. If a student, like for example, I'm going to refer to my Taking No Shortcuts book. I go through this book with students, and let's just say I'm going through a page, and Grant and I, when we laid the book out, we always thought that the exercise at the top of the page is the easiest one, and the one at the bottom is the hardest, and then when you go over to the next page, the whole next page is harder than the previous one. And one of the things I've always found really to be quite funny is this. How is it that sometimes students will get to what you've deemed the hardest to play, and they play that effortlessly, and the one at the top of the page, which you've deemed to be not so difficult, they struggle along. I always find that kind of humorous. And sometimes I do that myself when I'm playing stuff. It's like, how am I not getting this? You know, like sometimes the simplicity of something gets in the way. And if you're working on things and you find something at the bottom of the page, or the exercises that you've been told are more complex, if you get that, don't worry about it, it's good. You need to get it anyway. And then if you struggle along with something that's deemed a little bit simpler, and it's just, for some reason it's not clicking, don't worry about that either. You'll get them all eventually. They're all linked and they all support each other. So, and especially for you folks who are here today that run classes and teach new drummers, whether they be kids or whether they be adults, what is difficult for one is easy for another, and you like to be able to play them all. One of the things that Grant and I have done with how we teach using the Orange Book is this. I'm saying this, and as I see a lot of people in the room, I think it's fair to say that most of you, if I was to say, we live in quite a different world today than the one 30, 40 years ago. When I was starting to learn to play drums, which would have been in the late 60s, I came from a little coal mining area in Scotland, and there wasn't really much to do. Let me think. Oh yeah, we used to watch TV sometimes. Had a 14-inch television that was really quite large. Now people carry 14-inch TV screens around in their backpack. But we used to have 14-inch TV screens. The television was black and white. There was no colour, and there was only 2 channels. I remember when we got 3 channels, it was amazing. And then only to discover that I didn't really like any of the shows under that one, and there wasn't really much to do. So what did we do? Well, we played drums. I went to the local band 3 times a week because they had practice for us all Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays I played soccer and rugby, and that was it. But now, as a teacher, there are so many distractions out there for youngsters, like so many. So if you're in the 25 and under crowd, you got a lot of distractions out there. Oh my goodness, you've got a lot of distractions. So how do I, as a teacher, lure you away from, you know, a 64-inch TV screen with all kinds of crazy games going on it, multicolored, things going crazy, all that stuff? How do I do that? So that's why we have some extra exercises in it, because it gives the youngsters, especially of today, few extra things to practice, and it helps us to get them hooked. And that's one of the reasons behind developing so many pages on just little kind of simple exercises. The idea is to try and get them hooked and get them interested in playing. One of the things I also like to do is never ask a youngster. So if you're 13, 14 and under, never ask them to practice for a certain amount of time, okay, when you're working on rudiments with them. I would say that what you want to do is ask them to play something a certain amount of times. So I'll say to someone, I'll give them, they're maybe working on a 2-bar phrase, and I'll say to them, you know, you need to go home and practice that for 5 minutes. And they'll say, no, wait a minute. I need you to go home and practice that 100 times. Now, the younger they are, the more their eyes pop out their head, because they go, 100 times, Reed? That's going to take... And so I get my phone, trusty phone, they are good for certain things, and then I'll say, right, I'm going to get you to play 10 of these phrases, and I'm going to time it. And so they play 10 of them, and I time it. And I say, okay, so how long would it take you to play 100? And then they find that if they play 100, it's almost the same time as if they played a certain amount of time. But youngsters especially, and I say this because I know young boys especially, if you say, right, when you go home, before you come back next week, I need you to practice this, 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 and this 100 times every single day. And this, 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 and this, only 50. And see these 2 things there? 10 times a day. They'll go home and they'll do that. But if you go home and ask them to practice for 30 to 40 minutes a day, 20 minutes. Why? Because they have no idea. They have no concept of minutes. No idea at all. So give them numbers. It works really quite well. It's kind of like a neat way to trick them. not really trying. Well, I'm trying to trick him. I'm trying to trick him into practicing and moving the agenda along. Now, I see a young guy here today, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, and I'm going to pick on him just a little bit in a very nice way. Grayson, it's really awesome to see you here. Grayson's not been drumming very long, and he came and he was really fired up at Piping Hot Summer Drummer. I met him for the first time. Had a refreshment in the evening with his dad, and got to enjoy his company as well. And he was doing really, really well at Piping Hot. He was tearing stuff up. It was really excellent. And then his dad put recordings up of him playing at a competition on the Labour Day weekend. And I could not believe the progress from the first weekend in July to the first weekend in September. 2 months. I was like, oh my God, that's wow. And I was very happy that, and I'm sure as his teacher Lloyd, who is actually online as well, was even more happy. But he went out to a competition in Canmore, Alberta, and he cleaned up. I was like, wow. I wasn't actually surprised. I was pleased that he cleaned up, you could say, but I was more pleased at how much he had progressed in 2 months. I was like, I really couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. So anyway, he's on today. I hope he picks up a few more things, and I can't wait to get to hang out with him again at Piping Hot next year and see how much progress he's made in that time. But it's all about working at stuff. Now, once you get past some of the foundational things.
Hey, Reed, sorry, I'm going to just butt in for a sec here. There's a couple of questions. A couple here. Well, just again, everyone, just so you know, I'm noting all your questions, right? So I'm just going to ask a couple of the questions here because they're based around the roles, and you were talking about the roles. So Stephen Hill asks, how much do you emphasize the triplety feel or structure of the roles? And then Randy asked a good question. Well, he more of a statement. I thought it was all about the buzz development, like it is on page 24. So I'm going to let you jump in and sort of answer those both. And just again, everyone, ask questions. Everyone has asked a question on here. I've got it noted here. We'll get to your questions towards the end, but these I just felt as you were talking about roles were important to sort of jump in now. So go ahead, Reed.
Okay, so I use the triplet you feel all the time. Okay, now I think when you teach, it doesn't really matter the age of the student. Some people are math based and some people are not math based. Okay, so I could teach the 3-pace roll, 1 triplet and triplet, 2 triplet and triplet, 3. Okay, now personally I never teach it that way unless I have to. That's not my go-to method. I find it boring. I'd rather look at a beige wall than teach like that because the beige wall is more exciting than teaching that way. I just find that math belongs in the math class and creativity belongs in the music class. So I try to think of things to say that match the rhythm of the exercise. So lots of math students know that Reed loves to teach you all about elephants and kangaroos. Let me demonstrate. I'll play this slow. Elephants bicycle faster than kangaroos hop. 2, 3, 4. Elephants bicycle faster than kangaroos hop. There you go. So that's 4 triplets in a trap. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, stop. Oh my God, that is so boring. Oh, please, it's painful. But elephants bicycle faster than kangaroos hop. One student asked me, but elephants can't ride bicycles, to which on an absolute snap of my fingers, I don't know where it came from, but I said, oh, but they can, because these are the elephants from the circus and they're magical. And that was it. The student never asked any more questions about elephants riding bicycles. So it's a little rhythmical thing. One of the easy things, I think most people on here would know this, regardless of their age. Hickory dickory dock, hickory dickory dock, hickory dickory dock. Or for a 9-stroke roll, yabba dabba doo, Flintstones. Okay. What's the Scooby-Dooby-Doo? That also works if you've never seen the Flintstones, some of you younger folks, but yabba dabba doo, Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Okay? Now, I used this on a student, and I've never seen a student learn to play a 7-stroke roll so quickly as when I used this, and I now use it all the time. Okay? So here is my interpretation of how I would teach a 7-stroke roll. Chocolate milk. Chocolate milk. What kid doesn't like chocolate milk? They love it. So I'll say, come on in, let's get warmed up. Give me 20 chocolate milks. 1, 2, chocolate. They'll play 30. In fact, you could stop them after 5 minutes because they're so into it and having fun. It's a little bit more exciting than 2, 4, 6, 7. Got it. Give me a second. 2, 4, 6, 7. Or triplet up. That's what you get. But you say, I've got this exercise. It's called the chocolate milk exercise. And they go, chocolate milk, chocolate milk, chocolate milk. That's a right-handed chocolate milk. And for those of us who like to drink our chocolate milks in the left hand, it goes chocolate milk, chocolate milk, chocolate milk. There you go. Now, another one I was teaching for 9-stroke rolls, because it's a little bit different, you know, it's only got so many, the yabba dabba do thing, yabba dabba, okay. I would use sometimes Vancouver is, for 11-stroke roll, sorry, I would use Vancouver is the best, okay. And when I was teaching my grandson that, he would not go for that because he was a Maple Leaf fan. So he wanted to play Toronto is the best. Toronto is the best. So I reasoned with him and we came to an agreement that if you play them on the right hand, because he was right-handed, Toronto is the best. But when you had to learn them on the left hand, you had to play them like Grandad did, and you played Vancouver is the best. Toronto is the best. Vancouver is the best. I've never seen anybody learn anything so quickly, and I use those little things. Now, you can substitute any of those things with any saying that you like. I think sports is often a great way to do it. So if I'm speaking to my American friends, I would use baseball. When I'm speaking to my Canadian buddies, it's all hockey. You know, when I go down to the Southern Hemisphere, it's either cricket or rugby. And you just kind of get little plays on words, things to make it fun. Make it fun. Music is fun. At least that's why I'm 64 years old and I still have so much fun playing. I can't wait till I get back to band and we start to get ready for next August again. Why? It's awesome. It's the most fun thing I get to do. It's great. Music's fun. And all kinds of music. I don't listen to pipe band music exclusively. If you were to be riding in the car when I'm driving from Vancouver up to Penticton to visit Grant and you were listening to the playlist that I have, you would probably look at me and go, you listen to this too? And it's like, yeah, great music is great music. I love bagpipes. People often say, Reid, did you used to play the bagpipes? Did you ever learn? And I always tell them, very honestly, hell no. Never been remotely interested in playing bagpipes in my life, but you know what I love doing? I love playing drums with people who love playing bagpipes. That is absolutely amazing. It's the most amazing thing, and I've wanted to do it my entire life. My entire life. That's all I've ever wanted to do. The very first time I heard a pipe band, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to know how to play drums, because I thought that the drums were cool. So, there's that, I think, and to just mention about Randy, about making the buzz sound, that's what it's all about. It's getting that nice buzz. sound. You don't want if you hold your stick too tight, and you hit the pad too heavy, your buzz goes from a buzz to a buzz. Okay? And if you hold it too loose and you're a little bit, too loose with it, it becomes a buzz. Now, if you live in the southern United States, maybe they all play buzzes down there. I don't know. You'll have to ask all your American friends down there. But buzz. B-U-Z-Z. Buzz. 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 And all you do is you fuse them together. And when you make that, as I call a flatline sound, you're there. If you take it too far, I'll take it too far, it becomes overpulsed, and that's not good either. Okay? So in drumming, I like to say, when you're learning your rolls, a flat line is excellent. In life, you're dead. But in drumming, you're making it. So keep those little things in mind. All right. Now, once you've got some of these basics, or all of these basics, you don't have to be playing them all brilliantly, but the next thing that you're going to want to start to do is you're going to want to start and learn to play scores, drum scores. So the new mass band cadences they weren't created by any one specific person, but I was part of a committee who was asked to look into the old mass band scores / cadences, I'll call them, and what we now call the mass band cadences, because it was deemed by many people, and certainly myself, that the old mass band scores had very tricky bits in it that a lot of people could not play very well. And that was absolutely true. Okay, so we had things that were very, very busy, and we went from that to playing something that was less challenging, but more of a gateway. Okay, so where am I going with these rudiments? Well, we want you to go from the rudiments into playing like an introduction to drum score, is what you can say. So, for example, we would play the mass band cadences. So what we have there is right-handed flams, 7-stroke rolls, 13-stroke rolls, and a paradiddle. Okay, so when you go from rudiments to scores, you take the rudiments and you sculpt them together. Now, one of the things I've found is I get students who are amazing at playing repetitively the same rudiment. Like, they can go down a page of exercises and it's like, wow, that's really good. But then when it comes to playing a drum score where you jump from one rudiment to another, back to another, then you go back to the same one that you played previously, and that they find to be very confusing. They don't, but if you ask them to play paradiddles, where accents, let's say, on the first note and the second note, and shift them around like this, they'll play that all afternoon. But then you show them to play, can't get it, because they're thinking about, oh, what hand is that flat? Did we start on the right? And then is that a 7-stroke roll? Oh shoot, and how long is that one? They get a little bit confused. Yeah, if you were to ask them to play a whole line of 7-stroke rolls, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, they would do that perfectly. 13-stroke rolls, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. They would do that. But then when you mix things up, they find that quite intimidating. Now, I think Grant jumped in on the Facebook thing that was going on about people playing mass band scores poorly at the Maxwell Highland Games. And how was it that you answered it, Grant? I thought it was awesome.
So at the Maxville Highland Games this year, marching into mass bands, half the bands were playing these new cadences and half the drummers were playing the old cadences. Now, the reason why these new cadences came about was because they were a lot simpler. So ultimately it's going to allow for more participation if you can play something that's a little bit more simple. And I think that's the most important thing here, is that some people don't quite understand and grasp the fact that why that these came about. It's a mass band. Like, why is it that a piper can go to mass bands in Scotland and in wherever, all around the world, and they know these common tunes, but drummers don't know how these common beatings, because it's different from the Ontario scene to the West Coast scene down to places in the States. They play different cadences. The idea was that make one simple cadence so that you can include everyone, but also that you can get very raw beginner people to also participate, right? The fact that Reed said it, like there's 5 things, like I have it on the screen here. There's 5 things here. There's a flam, 7-stroke roll, paradiddles, 13-stroke rolls in the second part. There's like 4 elements of this drum score, and you put it in a sequence and you make the thing. You can teach that to someone a lot easier than like those old cadences that everyone is is very familiar with. Reed could tell you they were written by grade 1 bands to be played by grade 1 bands back in the day. It was from the International Tattoo in the 70s. Am I right? That's so grade 1 bands were making these up to play for grade 1 bands, and it's just kind of over time, been sort of the thing. But the reason why Reed was one of the people in charge of this initiative to like get the new mass band scores, is because Reed teaches. He knows that the 5-stroke roll is the hardest thing. So why are we doing it in the first part? Like, people get so discouraged because the hardest thing is right off the bat, where this is simple. Flams, 7-stroke rolls, paradiddle tap, and then that's the 2/4. 4/4, same thing. Flam, 7-stroke roll, and then triplet. It's not even triplet flam, it's triplet tap. Even simpler. So you can include more people. And it's a lot easier to teach. And I've had that where I was teaching in Ohio at a school, and I said at the very beginning, like very raw beginners, like 6 to maybe 12 months of experience of playing, maybe. And I said, right, we're going to learn every single one of these new mass band scores by the end of the week. And they were like, what? Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Oh my God. And then it's like, before I even showed the music, it's like, right, here's a flam. Well, paradiddle first. Then here's a flam. Here's a 7-stroke roll. Okay, let's like see if we can like put this in a sequence. And then by the end of the second day, they all had it. It wasn't even a week. So it was just so much more easy to teach people. And then of course, it's the inclusivity of, if you're traveling and there's a Highland Games and you want to get involved in the mass bands and play with everybody, because that's a cool thing to do, you can do that with this simply. So I think it's important that people understand why these new scores were put in place. It's not because maybe the drummers couldn't play the hard stuff, but it's the big picture, and it's just trying to get everybody included. Like, the pipers don't play the hardest tunes at mass bands. They play very simple, very melodic tunes, and that are very easy to recognize by ear. And they do that for a reason, because it's all about the music and the inclusivity, right? So I think that's important. So anyways.
So I'll jump back in again. Grant, that was awesome. Thanks for doing that. I loved what you said, and I loved when you put it out on social media as well. So one of the things I get asked a lot, and I have there's a few people on a line with us today. Jim Kilberg, Bruce Baxter's on as well, who are very accomplished drummers out with pipe band drumming. And when I get involved with people from other genres, they always say, so Rita, what makes you guys different? What's your thing? And so I always say what our thing is that we follow melody really closely. The melodic line means everything to the pipe band drummer and his drum score, where, for example, the American rudimental, let me use this as an example. If the University of Southern California marching band was having a salute to Scotland night and they were going to play Scotland the Brave, here's what they would probably do. And please, I'm not trying to offend those experts in rudimentary drumming like this, but it would kind of go something like this: 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they would play all these rhythmic things. There would be 5 or 6 bass drummers going crazy. There would be quads. The brass section would be going nuts. And it would be awesome, because that's how they do it. It's really good. Now, in pipe band, we follow melody. So, same tune, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. As Grant said, simple tunes, although my piping friends tells me that Scotland the Brave is maybe not as simple as a lot of people would like you to think it is, because there's a couple of movements in there that are not exactly the easiest. But if I was following the Scotland the Brave, okay, so if you take the old mass band scores that most people in North America still love playing, when the pipe major says, right everybody, Scotland Brave, 1, 2. So here's what that tells me. It tells me that Scotland the Brave goes like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I've never heard it played like that on the bagpipes once. Not once. So what we have is noise. So there's people at the back called drummers making a noise, and people up front called pipers playing music. And drums are loud, and when you put two things together like that, it ain't going to work. But if you follow the melody, maybe you could bring the tune out. Okay? So when I play Scotland the Brave, I play second part, okay? Now, some drummers might say, that's a bit easy. And the answer to that is, said no piper ever. What is it? Why does it have to be not easy? If you understand what I'm saying. Like, for example, we spend a lot of time listening to mainstream music. Most mainstream music's really quite simple, really. It's 4/4, common time, you know, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely fantastic. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones have proven that beyond all shadow of a doubt. That doesn't need to be complicated to be good. Love, love me do. You know, it's like simple. We all live in a yellow submarine. That's easy. That's not complicated. You know, so there's, I don't understand. And now, if you want to play complicated, you can get a more complicated tune and play along with that. So, Scotland the Brave is really quite straightforward. You'll notice in the scores that we put up on the website.
I've got Scotland the Brave up on the screen right now, Reed, but
I was
else
actually going to jump to Flat from Flora that we put out for everybody. I think that was the 4/4 March.
Yep, right here.
So,
It's on the screen.
yeah. So, flat from fora, I'm told by my piping friends that it's actually an easier tune than Scotland the Brave. And it was written by the legendary Donald MacLeod. A lot of his music is hugely celebrated by the piping fraternity out there, and the Flat from Flora is a really great wee tune. So I'm going to play. I'll play the first part for you, just so you can kind of hear this a little bit, and then we'll have a quick little chat. So 1, 2, 3. Ha, dee, dum, dee, dee, dum, ba, ho, hum, dee, do, hum, do, ha, hum, do, dee, do, dee, do, hum, do, ho, ha, dee, do, ho, ha, dee, dee, do, ho, hum, dee, ho, hum, dee, ho, ha. Okay, now I stopped at the end of the first bar and the second part because the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth bars in the second part are exactly the same as the first part. So my question to you is, why do you think I wrote 7 bars for the second part exactly the same as the first part? Did you think that A, I was bored with the tune and just thought, oh, that'll do? Do you think that B, I run out of ideas? Or C, the tune itself, the melody, goes like that? So it's C. The melody of Flat from Flora is very basic, and it's crafted in a very simplistic way. It's an incredibly popular tune amongst pipers because it's easy to learn and it's very musical. And you don't have a lot of stuff to memorize when you learn to play it, because you get the first part and it's like, okay, I've got that. Right, now let's get into the second part. Okay, I've got the first part. And then your teacher probably says, and now it just picks up where the first part took you. And then all of a sudden, you've got it all done. You've got a tune, a new tune. Oh, that was really quite good. I quite like that. So it's knowing how the tunes go as well. So as you've already noticed, thank goodness Reed doesn't sing, because he doesn't sing well, but he can play the drums. Okay, my name is certainly not Phil Collins, and so but I can hum the tunes well enough that it gets the point across. And I spend a lot of time humming tunes when I'm at band and when I'm teaching, because it helps, and it's trying to get people to learn the melodies and then play to the melody. Okay, now I had the most amazing grandmother when I grew up, and she spent all her time in the house listening to records and music by all kinds of people. Okay, and so even before I went for my first drum lessons, I knew tunes. I knew tunes. You know a tune I knew that it was absolutely amazing, and I think because of my grandmother more than anything else, I hold it very dear to my heart, and that would be The Green Hills. But I did not know it was called The Green Hills by bagpipers, because my granny taught me to sing it as a Scottish soldier. And the words kind of go something like, there was a soldier, a Scottish soldier, who wandered far away, and away you go. So, I went to my very first drum lesson, and then at the end of the drum lesson, this amazing thing happened. We got to go and see the band rehearse in the little band hall. Of course, I was like mega excited. It was like, wow. So went in, and 2 things struck me. The first thing that struck me was the band were not wearing kilts. they were all in their regular duds. I had never seen anybody playing pipes without their kilt on. I was shocked. And then they started to play, and the first tune they played was A Scottish Soldier. So you could imagine an 8-year-old running home to his grandmother's house, and I just could not wait. I was exploding with excitement to tell her two things. Gran, they weren't wearing their kilts, but they played A Scottish Soldier. It was so cool. I didn't know it could be played on the bagpipes. And so I grew up with all those melodies that were songs. And a lot of that happens, especially in the simpler tunes like Bonnie Dundee, would be another one. And one of the folk groups that my grandmother introduced me to this a duo was called the Paradiddles. And they've written some amazing tunes that actually fit beautifully on the bagpipe. For example, some of you might know the 4/4 March Killiecrankie, okay, or the Shoals of Herring, or probably the most famous piece they ever wrote is a piece called The Flower of Scotland. Okay, it's the unofficial national anthem of Scotland, and it was written by two people who don't play bagpipes at all. So all of those things are really important. So it's really, really good to learn the tunes. And when you've got the tune, you can then start to drum to the tune. I'm moved by pipe music because it's just so amazing. And for the longest time, I didn't like pibroch. And I didn't like pibroch because I didn't really understand it, and so I couldn't. And one of the things that sort of happened to me is I realized that if you didn't try to mark time and just listen to the melody, you could just sit back and enjoy the melody. And ever since I sort of figured that out, or somebody pointed it out to me a little bit as well, I just absolutely love to listen to pibroch played by the great players, like one of my favorite pieces would be Lament for the Children, I think it is. I think that's the correct name, but somebody please keep me right there. It was played by Bill Livingston when the 78th Fraser Highlanders played at the Live in Ireland concert in Ballymena in 1987, and it's absolutely sublime. And a few years after that, Bill was here in British Columbia in Vancouver judging, and he played it. He played a pibroch at his recital that he gave when he was here. I think it's called "In Praise of Morag" or "Praise of Morag." I'm not quite 100% on the wording there. What a piece of music! It was. I was actually, well, after he started the first ground bit of it, I was actually sitting on the edge of my chair and my jaw was on the floor because I just couldn't believe how musical and how moving it was. And of course, if any of you have ever sort of done any research on Bill Livingston, he was one of the great pibroch players and great exponents of that type of music. And so when you get to hear a great player play a great tune, it's like, oh my goodness, it was chilling to hear that. So I just share that with you because I think it's really, really important that we get to the music and learn the music. On a slight sidebar note, when the new mass band cadences came about, I was relieved, like Grant, because the other ones just used to drive me nuts because a lot of people couldn't play them because the combinations in them were too complex. And then I can also tell you that for several years at Simon Fraser University, when we would teach the kids in the Robert Malcolm program, I barred the old mass band scores from being taught on the mountain. And the reason I did that is because I thought they were completely incorrect and not good. But I told the kids, if you want to learn them, get your instructor to show them if you really want to learn them, but you will not waste our time here being shown how to play them. They all picked them up as they went along, but I barred them. I think it was somewhere around about 2012 or 2013 or something like that. I was just so annoyed with them and the things that they went in. On another aspect of building a foundation, all these tunes, the ones that we passed out for today's workshop, are all kind of, they're not overly challenging, but it's kind of like, so Reed, what did you use for the basis of your flat from Flora drum score? Well, if you look at the flat from Flora drum score that we passed out, and you look at the mass band scores, you'll find that, or the mass band cadences, the new ones, what you've got is pretty much the same rudiments, but they are crafted in a way that they fit the melody. They don't play against the melody, they work with the melody. And that's what we're doing, okay? If there's one thing as a drummer, I'll wear this with a badge of honor in the fact that I say this, and that is, drummers get sometimes the short end of the stick because they're often referred to as being lazy, blah, 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 you know, yeah, whatever. I don't think that is necessarily true, but the one thing I will say, pipe band drummers, they are definitely lazy. They are the laziest drummers in the world. They give all drummers a bad name because they want to play this to every single 4/4 march ever written. They want to play to every 3/4 march, and they want to play to every 6/8 march. Now, I'll share again, this is Reed proven that beyond all shadow of a doubt, he's the biggest geek you've ever met. You know the mass band, the old mass band score, and even the new cadence starts like this as well. They start 8th note onto the second beat of the bar. Dum, bum, bum. A few years ago, I did a little bit of research and I found out, much to my surprise, that I had over 50 3/4 march drum scores. And one of the reasons I went into my 3/4 march drum score file is I was interested because most of the 3/4s that I came across always started with a dotted 8th note. Dum, ba, da. But the mass band score goes bum, bum, ba, you know. And I couldn't believe how many scores I had on file that all followed that bum, ba, ba, because 1 and 2 doesn't fit. So the Green Hills. Bum, ba, ba, bum, ba, ba. That's how it starts. Come on, that's easy. Flam to 13, tap 7-stroke 13. There you go, that's easy. Now I could play the mass band one, okay? But right as soon as I've played the very first downbeat, I'm no longer following the melody. I'm just playing notes. You know, I'm playing rudiments, and I might be playing them well, but they don't fit the tune. And I just can't, absolutely cannot do that when I play. I just cannot play like that. It's creepy to play that. It's like nails.
Just check, and I've got this on the screen here, but like this is from the book. Okay, Castle Dangerous, first bar, chup, but zap. Okay, Collins Cattle, chup, but zap. My Land, chup, but zap. Green Hills, chup, but zap. Dream Valley. Does that same rhythmical structure, but it's because it fits the melody. That's why. So don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, and I think it would be fair to say that the composers they're writing melody. And because we're very melodic based, we should be embracing the melody and not suppressing the melody. I think that we suppress the melody, far too much. Like, for example, I'll kill a cranky. Ha, and ho, and okay? You'll notice that there's a bit of space in there as well. For example, the second part of Killicranky would start, for me anyway, like this. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay? There's enough space there in bar 1 that you could drive an articulated vehicle through that space. One of the things I enjoy saying to youngsters when I'm teaching a class is this. You know, when you're playing there, there's one thing I'm not liking, and then I throw them the curveball of all curveballs. I say, you see the space between the notes? It's not very good. That's how you confuse a drummer who doesn't pay attention to the melody. The space between the notes, I'm a little bit concerned about that there. It's not very clear. So, all of those wee things are followed in the scores. They're quite simple, the ones that we handed out, and the one that Grant and I played and put up on the website for Captain Norman or Ewing would be a drum score that I would consider to be a really good entry level if you're playing in grade 4. Score. It's one of several. It's not the only one. There's many great, not overly complicated 2/4 marches that you would play. Captain Norman or Ewing is one that I like to use a lot. So is Miss Stilicia Chisholm. The 7/9 Farewell to Gibraltar would be another one. Those three, I kind of use them a lot. I like the melodies, and just depending on the student, I might go with a certain one. Okay, now you can see that in Captain Norman, or you could hear, in Captain Norman or Ewing, geez, he's still using some of those 7-stroke rolls and flams and 13s and all those things that are in the mass band cadences. Yeah, because once you learn to play once you learn to play what the basics are, you never stop playing them. You know, like, for example, I don't play bagpipes, but I know a fair amount about things. And once you learn to play a burl, which is the thing that you use when you play that funny little thing with your pinky on your right hand, most times on your right hand, it comes up in so many tunes. In fact, it's kind of hard to find tunes that don't have burls. So when you learn stuff, it's because you're going to need it. And so when you learn some of your basic movements, and then you learn the mass band cadences, you take all the basic movements and all the mass band cadences and you bring them forth, and then you add the new things into them where they work. And then you add more, and then you add more, and then you add more, and you just keep on adding to it. And every time you go along, the truck gets bigger or heavier. Okay? It's like, just bring it along. Okay? But the mass band cadences, the new ones, give you a chance to get into that and really get you moving. Now, just before, I'm going to get Grant to open it up for some questions and stuff like this, but I've been working on some music in the last week because my good friend Jack Lee put up a post on social media last week about, he put up something like 35, 36, something like that, kids' tunes, kids' songs. And I've been really doing the happy dance every day this past week. I kid you not, because I know the importance of trying to suck people in to songs because they would recognize them. I was lucky back in the day, my granny played songs and I was able to know all these songs before I even went to band. But this might be my favorite song that I've just composed a drum score to, okay? And it might be because it's got everything to do with the movie Shrek. So here you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you know the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man, the Muffin Man. Do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Prairie? Yes, I know. And away I go. Unbelievable. It's awe-inspiring. And I got so carried away when I was into this project, I decided to go and write Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm he had a duck, E-I-E-I-O. Favourite coming up, and with a quack quack here and a quack quack there. Here a quack, there a quack, everywhere a quack quack. Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Okay, now, do you know how many young kids I'm going to reel into the drumming room because of these? They are going to be coming in. They're going to be like going out fishing, and you're oh my goodness, the fish are really taken to the bait today. They will be jumping in the boat when I get these introduced to the RMM program within the next couple of months. Okay. Grant and I are also going to make them available to everyone because we will be putting them up on our website electronically so you can download them, and there will be no price tag on it. It will be completely free. Just download them and use. The idea is that every kid probably has a favorite. So there'll be, whatever one student's favorite is, teach that. Whatever the next one is, teach it to them. Because they will, if you've got a student who loves Old MacDonald Had a Farm, okay, and if he wants to say, and the cow goes moo moo there and a moo moo there, you make sure that that's the one that you sing to with him or her, because that's what they're going to want to play. So build a foundation. Listen to the music. And most people would all know Old MacDonald. The wheels on the bus, that's another one I've got here. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round. Like kids all know that. And when you can sing and drum, they will be inspired. And then they'll want to know that Scotland the Brave goes la, 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 la. They'll want to know that that's how it goes. So, right, Grant, let the questions unload, please.
Right. So we have a few. I'm gonna just do this a little bit out of order, just because. By the way, there was a nice history note dropped that Glenna mentioned that Flet was from an island.
Yes, called Florida.
Florida.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Now she did indicate, and I'll pop it up here on the screen. She was asking why aren't the left hand and right hand notes indicated on the bass and tenor scores on the mass band. So let me just pop that up here. And you can see that. And, I personally think that's more of like a feel thing, right? Like it's, and Reed, please jump in if you don't agree with me here, but I think it's important for bass and tenor to just, more importantly at the beginning, feel the rhythms. So, if you're a left-handed person, you're probably going to lead with your left. And if you're right-handed, you're going to lead with your right. So you can interpret these as however you want. Now, I think as you get a little bit closer to, the higher levels, things become a little bit, you try to emulate the drum scores that are being written. So, if the snare drummers are playing on the right hand, you'll have a tenor note or a bass note on the right, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's just, but I think ultimately it doesn't really matter because I think only the drumming geeks like myself and are really, 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 really paying attention to that. And then, of course, like my OCD brain would do that when I write music, of course. But I think it's just more of a feeling the rhythm here, right? And I think for the snare drumming part of this, it's like you're not writing left 7-stroke rolls. Why? Because they're a lot harder than right 7-stroke rolls. Because again, 90% of the population can probably play these better than the left one. So I think it's just more of a thing. And I do know that there are some people who write their music like this, like just as even some tenor bass players, or people who write the music for them. Write their music like this, so it's on the line and you can just interpret it how you feel. I think ultimately it's most important to just get the rhythm and playing the beats and the notes on the spots they're supposed to be played. So that's a good question. And then Kim also asked, should we be carrying these new cadences through the rest of the provinces, asking for Manitoba? So absolutely, I think it's not just the rest of the provinces. I think it's everywhere. I think this is very important, that there is a very simple, solid foundation for drummers to go and play these. And that way, when we all get together in random parts of the world, because these Highland events happen in all sorts of different parts of the world, that we can all play them together and make it sound pretty decent if we can all play the same thing. It doesn't sound good when two different things are going on, right? So I think it's okay to say, okay, yeah, like when you're playing with your band, excuse me, and you're playing a 4/4 set with your band, yeah, go ahead and play. Go ahead, play all that stuff. Do what you want. But when you're playing together with everyone, don't overcomplicate it. It's not about playing the most difficult stuff. It's about playing music. Make good music. So, anyways, Reed, do you have anything to sort of touch on that?
Yeah, just the all the pipe band associations in North America, so both those in the US and both in Canada, all agreed to adopt these scores a few years ago now. And what I was part of a three-person committee, just so you all understand. It wasn't, and the initiative was not led by me. I was asked because of my experience in teaching if I would be interested in helping, so I did. And so Doug Stronach from Ontario, Jim Sim from Chicago, and myself, we came together. And Doug, because he knows Hugh Cameron really, really well, Doug reached out to Hugh to get a little bit of background on that kind of thing. And I always remember an email that Hugh sent to the three of us, and it said that the mass band scores as they currently exist, if you were to ask all drummers in grade 5 and 4 bands if they could play the mass band scores, he said somewhere between 40 and 50 would probably say yes, but in truth, it's more like 15 to 20. That's what he said. And that's what he said about the bands in Ontario. So I can't speak for others, but that's what Hugh said. And Hugh's been around the Ontario scene way longer than I have, and the whole idea was to try and get people involved. I genuinely think about this because I love teaching, and I don't like to see anybody take it up and then not do it anymore. And I often wonder how many people decided not to pursue it any further because when they were trying to play, it was too hard. I really genuinely I think on that quite a bit, because we don't, no pipe band organization in North America has students lined up around the city block begging to come and take lessons. We're all trying to get people in. And so if we can do it in a very good way, whatever that way is, then I just want to see us do that, and I want us to have fun. And like when people ask me about drumming, here's what I say about playing drums. I think that playing drums in a pipe band is the absolute coolest thing you can do. And when I immigrated to Canada in 1981, I learned a word that was a little bit different from any word I had used in Scotland. And that word was cool, C-O-O-L. And I very quickly learned that everybody in North America liked to be cool. They like to do cool things, or they like to hang out with a cool crowd. So what I try and do is I try and teach you cool by using my drumsticks. And once you have bought into, this is so cool, this is awesome, I've got you. And when I've got you, you are going to keep coming back for more, because that's what it's all about. So not really, at the outset, yeah, I'm teaching you drums, but I'm really teaching you about doing something that's cool. And I think I've got a winner here, because do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man? Do you know the Muffin Man who lives on Dewey? I think I might be up for a prize next year to be the coolest musician on the planet. There you go. I'm telling you, I just feel that we're gonna have kids inspired, and then from there they'll be wanting to play great tunes like Captain Norman or Ewing, and then they'll go into other great tunes like, Pipe Major Sandy Spence, the Conundrum. Then they'll go into other great tunes, the Cow Gathering, Hugh Kennedy, Arthur Bignald of Loch Ross, Highland Wedding, Lord Alexander Kennedy. They'll become the things that they're inspired to play, and they all got it from the Muffin Man,
who lives on Drury Lane. Yep. So, and then just a couple points here. Andrew just said, hey, has Reed recorded these mass band scores for people? He says, the audio resource published is nice, but video is extremely helpful. Someone mentioned that someone does have it, but he also does mention, why not emulate the GOAT? Reed. So please note that that would be something, and you're very, very, very true, Andrew. Because
I think all associations have record. It was my understanding that the associations have it up on their websites. That was my understanding.
So noted. And then also Kim mentioned maybe another note for the next thing to do for your fun themed music is video games, because generation kids video games, they get that. So
send me a file, please. Send me a file. I will do it. I am not anything to get the upper hand.
Like the Mario theme music is probably one of the most iconic, and it's probably just as very common as what us in the pipe band would be able to associate Scotland the Brave with, right? So, so that's cool. And then we have a couple of other questions here. We have one that was right off the bat. Now, this is sort of veering off a little bit of this, but just can you elaborate on the hierarchy of who's in charge of the tempo? That's the first part of the question, and I can answer that. The pipe major, right? The pipe major is, and then what to do as a lead drummer and core drummer when the tempo starts to accelerate. Is the hierarchy different from band to band, grade to grade? So Reed, since you are at the top of your hierarchy in your drum corps, please Tell us.
So the pipe major sets the tempo, and that should be something that's loosely discussed, and it should be. And one of the things I notice in the grade 5 and 4 level bands is there is a tendency to play simple tunes, but because they can play them, they try to play them fast, and they'll think that that will make them stand out with greater prowess because they play them fast. So hark, when the pipes are calling, hey, loudly, proudly calling, that's going too fast, I can't even sing the song, but hark, when the pipes are calling, beautiful, there's the melody. So there comes a point when you play it too fast, it's terrible. And there also comes a point when you're learning it, it's a wee bit slow, so you need to get it up just to that little bit, But anybody who's ever followed anything I've done over the last 50 years, if there's one thing that you've probably noticed, Reed Maxwell really likes the front end of the beat. I like music that moves forward. I like music that is exciting, okay? That's not to say that slow airs are not exciting, okay? My favourite tune of all time, I think it's the most sublime melody ever crafted for the Great Highland Bagpipe. I've thought that for many years, and I love it. Every time I have to play it at a recital or anything, I always share that with the audience first, and it's also a great piece to warm up. It's a 3/4. It also has one of those dotted eighth notes. And when I hear people playing, when they play that, do you have any idea how ill it makes me feel to hear my favourite bagpipe piece played like that? Come the winter, cold and dreary, flies a hawk down from the high skree to the slopes where snowy hares hide, all around the loching side. What a melody! The words to that were crafted by a group in Scotland called North Sea Gas, long after John McClellan of Dunoon had passed away. I did go to Dunoon this past August to visit the exhibit that was to honour the 150th anniversary of John McClellan's birth, and I'm just glad I went. One of the things that I did for the very first time, though, because I never actually really knew where it was, I went to Loch Loskin, where he got the inspiration to write the melody. And I was told by the guy at the exhibit that he had fallen out with a girlfriend or a lady friend. And after he had fallen out, he had walked over to the shores at Loch Loskin, which is on the north side of Dunoon as you're driving out of town on your way to the Rest and Be Thankful, if you know that end. And Loch Loskin is there, so I stopped and I got a couple of pictures and kind of just soaked up. This is where it happened. Wow, it was like unbelievable. Whew. So, see, you can tell I'm a geek when I can actually say stuff like that. It's really good. But Loch Inside, beautiful tune, lots of melody. Some tunes you just don't want to play too fast, but some tunes you just can't help but move them a little bit, jigs and hornpipes and, but control, like sometimes you can slow things down just a tiny little bit and get everybody playing it together and then let it evolve. When you can play things smoothly, and this is tying this to technique, when you play things and you play it slow and it gets smoother and you can play it without thinking about it so much, it gets smoother. And when it gets smoother, the tempo tends to have a tendency to rise just a little bit, and that's kind of normal. And like I wouldn't want to play certain tunes. Like for example, Brigadier General Brigadier General Ronald Chipa Taroran goes something like he I wouldn't want to play it because you're missing all the music. There's not enough space. So yeah.
That's good. And I think ultimately playing together is better than any tempo, whatever that tempo is. Playing together is the thing that you know makes us happy. So I think if you have a leader in place at your wherever it is you practice, that you have you follow the leader, and the leader should do their best to keep everyone together, right? So I would say as far as tempo goes, if something's new, always keep it slow. If it becomes a little bit more comfortable, definitely speed it up a little bit, but don't go over the top. And at the end of the day, just trust your gut. Now we do have some other questions here. So Matthias asks, "Hey Reed, are there any additional tips to teach the rhythm of the scores to the beginner?" So this is elephants bicycle faster than kangaroos hop, right? So as you mentioned earlier, it's relative to get easy folks to play 37 stroke rolls in a row, but I always find it challenging to teach someone how to join these rudiments together to play. So
I think the simple drum scores to simple tunes where they can hear the melody within the tune, and these new little songs that Jack's got me all excited about, right, getting things like that can be really good. I've had a great deal of success over the last few years teaching this I always wait till after Halloween because it seems to be more topical, and that would be jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun! And get them to realize that all the rudiments are lining up on all the words. And so using that type of thing is a great gateway to then getting things like, getting them to play along to some of the simple tunes, like, let me go back to the one that we used in the book. So Jenny's Walk, and so on. So, and always be humming the tunes, like teachers, if they can hum the tunes, or at least have a recording there so that they're always aware, of how the melody goes. Don't be like, I cannot sit down and teach a class anything if I don't know the melody, because I have no reference to share with them. So I can play that because I've got the tune in my head. When every now and again at band, guys just start, I'll join in. And then if I can't get the tune in the head, I have to get somebody to sing it to me, because I cannot play if I don't have the melody. I mean, I could play the math of the notes on the page, but I can't play it. Like right now, I'm looking at Miss Delicia Chisholm, and I can't remember how that goddamn tune goes. And so I can see 7-stroke roll, 7/6 triplets, but then I look over at the next page, and I'm looking at the sound nice for Walter's roller. I can get it now because I've got the melody. But if let me see what the next tune is here. Prince Charles is Welcome to Lochaber. I see notes. I don't know how I can play them, but it drives me crazy. Then Duncan McInnes. I've got that kind of in my head, So to me, it's all about it's just all about the music. There has to be an attachment as to why you like to play a certain drum score, because you must love the music. I just think that it's so important to learn. over many years, people have made fun of certain drummers. One of the drummers that people made the most fun about would be probably maybe Ringo Starr, who happens to be the richest drummer in the world. Okay, I want you to take that in. The richest drummer in the world. He was a drummer with the Beatles. Now, people can say what they like about Ringo Starr, but I'll bet you when he was sitting behind that drum set in the recording studios, laying down a track, he knew the melody of every song that he was drumming to. He knew the melody. Okay, he knew. We all live in a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine, a yellow submarine. Oh, he knew the tune, and if you watch old video, you'll often see like drummers who are actually singing the words to the song, but they don't have a mic because they're probably like Reed. They can't sing very well. You know, I have something that I say about rock and roll drumming that I think holds up well and help me make my point. And that is that in rock and roll, is there a better ensemble drummer than Don Henley? Because Don Henley wrote a lot of songs that the Eagles are famous for, but he also plays drums in the band. You know, like who better to know where the fill and what the fill should be than the person who wrote the song? You know, like the most famous double tom kick in the world is on a dark desert highway. Who knew to go? He didn't go digga digga da on a dark. He just went on a dark desert highway. Listen to the song. The ensemble is amazing. And I could say that about all of their songs because he wrote them, most of them. And so who better equipped? You know, Phil Collins would be another example. You know, I mean that. You know, people say it's the most famous lick in the history of drumming in rock. I don't know, maybe it probably is, but everybody knows that song by that Phil. And he wrote the song, and he also came up with the fill. And it's not a complicated fill. I'm told by people who are really good on drum set. I'm told it's pretty straightforward. So it's all about knowing the tune. Know the tune. I just can't. I can never really say that enough. I mean, I want to play tunes because scores to tunes because the melodies move me. You know.
And I think like just relating to sort of popular music or whatever, even just music with lyrics in it, like, you know, a person who writes lyrics to a song, they don't write the lyrics first typically. You know, they're listening to the melody and then they get the lyrics. So it's exactly like the drum scores of the lyrics, you know, to the melody. So just think of it that way. Now we have some other questions here. Josh asks, what is your approach to getting the best sound out of your snare? Playing on the head or into the head? I would like to answer this one.
Go.
So I always like to tell any of my students that when you're thinking about playing and making your notes, there's a way to give them a certain boldness, right? Now, think about the construction of a drum, right? Top head, underneath there is a snare, then you've got this shell, and then there's a bottom head, and then there's a snare, and then the sound comes out. So you want that sound to go all the way down to the bottom. So what I just say is aim for the bottom head. And they're like, what? It's like aim for bottom of your head. So I always talk about the follow through, right? The follow through. If you're doing this, okay, do you think the sound is traveling all the way to the bottom? The full sound? Most of it? Probably not, because you're letting the sound is projecting because you're letting your stick come up this way. But if you do this, you're aiming for the bottom. That's going to give that certain boldness, right? There's some drummers who can play with a bit of boldness, and it's all to do with the follow through. So I think the best way to get sound is to aim for the bottom of your head, the bottom of your drum, bottom head, as opposed to that. Right? If you let your sticks get away, the sound gets away as well. Now, there's going to be obviously some sound that spills out the top, even when you're aiming for the bottom. But a majority of it, if you're directing it that way, is going to go, and it's actually going to go and work how the drum is supposed to be. Top head, top snare, through the shell, bottom head, bottom snare, out the back, right? Out the bottom. So that's what I think. Reed, if you disagree, please let us know.
Well, here's what to think about. We'll relate this to bagpipes. If you do not blow enough air into the instrument, you don't get the right sound. Now, to take something that's not a bagpipe and use the same idea, if you don't blow into a trumpet strong enough, it doesn't make any sound. The air just passes through the instrument. But when you, that's how you get your sound. Bagpipes, it's the same thing. It's a little bit more complicated with bagpipes. And so when you hit the drum, you're not banging the drum for the sake of making a noise. You're learning to strike it. One of the things that Grant was demonstrating as well is when you hit, your arm and stick are at 180 degrees, tip to elbow, straight line. And you're not allowing the stick to come up. You are somewhat when you play that kind of thing, but you're still pushing it onto the drum. And so when I play a quiet tap, I still play with the same technique behind it. I don't change it, it's just quiet. So yeah, that relates to the volume. Right, next question. Grant and I kind of knew that we would. So
we've got two more questions here. So Anne asks, well, she says, so the ending two bar phrases for each part of a tune and each time signature are usually the same, right? I think we can all agree with that. Typically, this is common with the pipe, or is this common with the pipe music phrasing as well? So that's the first part of that question. And yes, that is definitely typically correct, especially a lot more with, I don't know, I would say more marches are lend to that and stuff like that. And then is it common to begin writing a score with the last two bars of the part, then filling in the rest? So basically writing the ending phrase. And as a composer, I typically will do that. And Reed, how do you do that as a composer? Do you typically, like if you're writing a march, let's say?
Yeah, I would say that sometimes that happens because you're be busking along and then something comes into your fingers and onto the pad and it's like, that's actually sounds quite good. And you keep on playing it, it's like, okay. So that when you establish that that's going to be the ending, then you're not going to use that phrase anywhere else. So you've decided that that's going to be that, so that will, okay, let's set that aside, that goes really well, and then you start to kind of, sometimes there'll be something in a certain part that inspires me, and I'll go to that part because it inspired me a little bit more than the other parts. So that's also okay to do that. I mean, I don't have a set way of doing it, one thing I do is I have, when I'm writing scores, so if I'm writing a two-parted tune or a four-parted tune, I either have two notepads on the go or I have four notepads on the go, and anything that relates to the first part goes on one page, and the third part it goes on a completely separate page, and I never get mad, crumple up the paper and throw it in the waste paper basket, because if one thing time has taught me, there might be an idea there and you cannot find it in your head because you've discarded it. And so I keep everything and then I get it on. And what I normally do is I normally then write out in rough copy just so that I can read it well enough to play, and I get to see, okay, that's pretty good. And then I never write things out in good copy right away. I always sleep on them for at least a night, and then go back to it the next day and see if it's as good as I thought it was. And then, so yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And then we have one last question. I mean, unless anybody has anything else, but Jonathan asked, when you purchased the TNS Taking No Shortcuts coiled workbook, does it come with a digital version? Now, no, it does not. It's a very good question. Reed and I discussed this when we were putting this together, and ultimately, I think we both felt it was better. I feel like I connect better when I can physically touch something. Now, yeah, I can physically touch the computer screen, sure, but there's just something for me personally when I'm looking at music and there's a book and I can open it, and maybe that's because of always having the old Taking No Shortcuts package where it was paper, and then I mean, it eventually got digital, and then that's how the whole entire world eventually got, associated and with the Taking No Shortcuts, the original 59 pages, because it was thing. And then the other thing too is it's very easy for someone to just go da 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 at gmail.com forward. That person gets it, that person gets it, that person gets it. At some point, you have to support your artists, and you have to support that to just to it's a, I don't know, it's an appreciation thing. I think I don't know, Reed, like, feel free to jump in. I mean, it's not like, listen, people can go and pick this book up right now, photocopy it and pass it out to anybody, and whatever. We have no way of stopping that. But at some point, I think ultimately for me, it's the physical touch. And also for me, also, as you can probably tell from my background, it's a little bit of a collectability thing. I like to collect these things. So I like the physical touch. And I mean, obviously, the you can't put a laptop on a computer stand as easy as you can this book, So I think it's just usability as well. It's a lot easier to use this than a computer screen or a tablet. And yeah, it's the feel thing for me. And yeah, so Reed, please.
Yeah, I would just echo a little bit what Grant said as well. Is for people in pipe bands, they love photocopiers. They love photocopiers. Bill Livingston said to me, this is 2 or 3 years ago, he says, there is no group of musicians that he's aware that loves to go to a photocopier and press copy more than the pipe band world, rather than buy a book. And I would just like to think that people would rather buy the book and immerse themselves in it and keep it forever and not copy it. I do have people who photocopy pages of it and so they can write notes on it, and then they go back to the book anyway. But actually taking a copy of the book or a segment out of the book, running photocopies out and then handing it out, basically that's theft. I look at that as theft. It's like somebody's wallet's lying on the table and you're just going to go in and just take the money out of the wallet and go and treat yourself to dinner. I just don't think that. I have quite an extensive collection of piping music books, and I always ask permission for anything and everything. If it's in public domain, then it's totally fine. But one of the things that you might have noticed that we've released the odd little piping manuscript in along with the drumming. So I've it's a little thing I'm trying to do in every book, and I've reached out to the person who composed the piece and asked them if the piece of music has been published, and if it hasn't been published, I've asked for their permission to publish it, and they've granted me permission to publish it, and so I always publish it on the same page as the drum score, so people can, just a little additive to, oh, that's kind of really cool. I've done that. I've done that in a couple of the books now, and I'm going to keep on doing that, especially if I'm aware of tunes that might not have been published, and just get them out. That's not to say that that person who wrote the pipe tune might not publish it in another book of their own, or that at any time. I don't really care about that because it belongs to them. But yeah, I just there's a lot of work that goes into putting a book together. Grant and I work a lot on just putting the book out, but there's the countless hours that has gone into composing scores over 40 years. I just think it's I would, if I walked into a room and somebody had a photocopied copy of one of the books, I would ask them, how did you come about this? And they said, oh, I bought it, but I photocopied it. Then I would phone Grant and ask him, did this person buy the book? But if there was no proof that that person ever bought the book, I would seriously question them about that, as I just don't think it's right. I think that we, like, for example, I'm not sort of trying to sell my own thing here, but today's workshop was free. I didn't want to charge for today's workshop. I wanted to give back to people who get stuff from me. Grant and I like to give. We're going to put up all these kids' songs, and we're going to put little drum scores up, and we're going to give that away for free. If you come to Piping Hot Summer Drummer, Stephen McQuarter, Eric McNeil, Reed Maxwell and Grant Maxwell give away approximately anywhere between 50 and 60 drum scores every year for free. That's part of the book that we hand out and stuff like that. So I think there's, I just think that it's nice to be giving, and it's not, I think that when you do that, I think it's, if people can find the goodness in what that they have as a person, back by saying, I'm going to buy a book that's really good, and we have books lined up for the next 5 years that we're going to bring out, but it takes a little bit of time to get them all together, and so.
And we'll, since you guys are all here and you've taken the time, we'll let you know that we plan to have our next book. So this was the first score book that we put out. This is the scores for beginners and intermediates. We are going to be putting a volume 2 of this beginning of 2026. So stay tuned to socials for exact dates, but we're aiming for beginning of 2026. We'll have another one of these. So there you go. That's news to the world,
It's a little bit. The intermediate is a little bit more advanced into the intermediate as well, and there's maybe just a little tiny bit less of the beginner stuff, But I think at the last count there is 95 drum scores and a drum fanfare going in the book, so that's pretty good.
And then we have a couple of other. There's a request for you to play a score now, Reed. Just for time purposes, do you have a recording of yourself playing Jenny's Bobby?
Yeah. If you need a copy, anything that's in the grey book has been recorded by each individual part, and all you need to do is send us your email, and I will send the link that has those recordings so you can play along.
Yeah, you can reach out to Reed if if you have his contact information, go ahead, reach out to him on socials. If you don't know, go onto the website, takingnoshortcuts.com, and you can reach out to us there, and we'll get you in touch with that. So that's, Randy, that's for you. But you also had a question, Randy's asking, explain double dot, and is it just making it longer? And yes, yeah. That's exactly what it is.
That's exactly. So when you see the double dot, Randy, it's 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's bum ba ba. So if I were filling that ba 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 ba, 1 and it's the note, 1 2. So if I'm playing lock inside, 1 2 3, bum ba ba. If there's only one dot there, technically the space is shorter. Pipers never write the double dot. I always do because I know that technically it's correct and I can explain it. It's just becomes self-explanatory because it falls in exactly the same space as when you play 1 and 1 and It's on the note. It's always the note that's double cut is a 30-second note, and it's always it would always fall on the 1 count. 1 and 1 and So that's why I double dot it.
And just Matthias also he mentions just so we're talking about that the book thing. He says here, I recently had a conversation with someone who runs our National Symphony Orchestra, and they shared their process for obtaining classical music scores. The orchestra has to submit the tunes that they would like to play to a central authority, who then reaches out to the respective composer to discuss royalties that the orchestra would have to pay to play those tunes. And he's saying it's a very stark contrast to the pipe band world. Absolutely. So putting that into perspective, everyone, like that's very, very, very interesting in that genre. And let's be honest, like orchestral symphony music is also very niche, like pipe bands. So very, very, very interesting there. Now we do have another question from Rich. He says, any tips for using a metronome for roll development and triplet development? Typical ending rolls too early and extending past the end of the beat. Then triples either too fast or too slow. Any tips or suggestions? So I'll let you handle that one, Reed. Even though I love metronome, by the way, just so everyone is clear, there's only one tool in the world that I know of that keeps us on time, and it's a metronome as far as music is concerned. And I definitely encourage using a metronome for very basic, fundamental building your fundamental and getting more like strength. It's good. Metronome is a free and easy tool to use that you don't even need an instructor for. Just as an example of something that I like to do with my students is, take a simple phrase, paradiddles with accents on the first note. It's like, okay, started at 50, play it. Cool. How do you know you're improving? Well, I can play it evenly and I can do it pretty consistently. Cool. Now let's bump it up to 55. Can you do it? Yeah. Can you do 60? Can you do 70? Again, so it's a way of like challenging yourself, and without having to like have someone say, you're doing better, you're improving. It's like you can tell by just using a very simple tool, the metronome, and using it as the way of learning and improving without somebody telling you you're improving or learning. So yeah, but Reed, jump in on that as well.
Yeah, I don't. I use it when I'm trying to identify where things are slowing down or speeding up, whether it be in my own playing or in a student's playing. I'll tap on it when they're playing and just kind of, and then I'll point out. But I don't like to get. I find the metronome takes it away from here. That's like music is a feel. You have to feel the music, and I think that's a really important thing. Grant, you've been around when Stephen and Eric and others have been talking about in a performance, like when somebody's playing a March to Spain Reel. I love when the reel ends up maybe being as much as almost 2 beats a minute faster than in the part 6 than it was in part 1, because it's moved me. And I haven't really noticed so much that it's actually sped up, because the performance has wrapped me up and I'm so into it. It's the music that's captivated me, not the fact that my metronome is not in sync with how he's tapping his foot anymore. You know what I mean? But I think it's a very useful tool, and it has no bias. Okay? And so you know, yeah, it's a very helpful tool, but I don't like to get too wrapped up in it.
Yeah, I and just to touch again, like
I like what you said though about the rudiments and speeding them up to play.
yeah, like
Looking at along at like 2 beat per minute intervals,
yeah, exactly.
fantastic. It's really keeps you on and keeps you controlled, and I love it from that perspective. But when you get in actually playing scores, I'm I don't promote it as much.
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and I'm the same. It's more of a I use it more of as a developmental tool. But you're right, Reed. Like, you have to be able to feel the music. It's a feel thing. Sometimes I think people are a little bit too wrapped up in the black and white, and just take your focus away and feel. And I think the feel is the most important. So, but yeah, I hope that's helpful. And is there any like last questions, anybody? I think I've got it all here. Um,
Grant, can you take the microphone thing off so if anybody wants to
sure, we
ask,
can do that. There you go. Everyone can now unmute themselves, but should be able to. But yeah, that was. Hope that was really helpful for and useful to everybody. Like I said, I will have a recording of this workshop. We'll put it up on the website within the next couple of days. It'll be up there. So just pay attention to your socials for information on that, and we'll get that up. And for anybody like Randy, if you're looking for recording of Jenny's Bobby, just reach out to Reed, and he has all the tunes, like he said in the gray book, recorded and all pretty like broken down pretty well. So just reach out to him. He can get you that for you, no problem. And anybody else, if you're looking for recordings. And I think we've talked about this, Reed and I, about the recording thing and just getting more content out, period. And I think we plan on doing that. So just stay tuned for more information on that. I think it's important to get content out. I'm a pretty big proponent of that. Because for whatever reason, pipe bands are like this weird secret society. Like, no one likes to share stuff. It's really weird, super weird. Where I'm encouraging music to get out, and we should have lots of content, because there isn't a lot, right? So we got to keep this art alive, because we all love it, and that's why we're doing it, right? So got will this recording be a bit? Yeah. So Dave just asked. Yeah, so Dave, we'll put that recording up for everybody. So just pay attention to socials, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, Reed's muted. If anybody has any questions, like, feel free to reach out to myself. I'm a pretty approachable person. I don't like to gatekeep anything. I'm pretty open in sharing my knowledge and information. So if anybody has any questions, just reach out. Anything pipe band related, drumming related, I'm certainly available, and I like to answer that stuff. Just like Reed, we're drumming geeks, so we love this stuff. So
yeah. Randy, I was going to say, in the file that I send you, what you'll find, for example, let's say Jenny's Bob B, there's going to be 3 recordings in that file. There's going to be Reed playing part 1, Reed playing part 2, and Reed playing the whole piece. And they're recorded, the individual parts are recorded a little bit slower, so that you've got a chance to play along. And the reason that I do each individual part is so that, when you're learning a tune, you're great in the first part, great in the second part, that third part's driving you nuts, and you're always trying to find where the third part starts in the recording so you can log in. So for every tune, every single part is recorded individually, and every single score is recorded as an entire piece. So I think it's about 360 recordings that you'll get, individual recordings in that file. So you'll find it's quite easy to play along with. So I'll send you that later today. If you don't, you'll have it by tomorrow for sure, 100%.
Can't hear you.
Well, it's gone well past 12 o'clock, and if there is no more questions, I think we'll just wrap things up for the day. Um, Grant and I just want to thank everybody for attending. We're quite overwhelmed by the massive amount of people that have shown interest in coming along, and we feel that we'd like to do this on a regular basis, like maybe every 3 to 4 months, have another one and then but pick maybe a completely different subject. And the subjects that we would like to pick moving forward, I think that we picked this one. So maybe people out there would like to pick the next one. So whatever one was requested the most, we would come up with that, and then we'll pick the next one, and then we would put it back to you folks to pick the next one, because we don't really like to tell, we like to help. Obviously we're giving you information and stuff like that, but it's, if there was an overwhelming amount of percentage of people said we would like to cover how to play and express your stress bass using that basis of strong, weak and medium weak, how much do you apply or something like that, we could do a whole workshop for an hour and a little bit just on that, if that was something. Or what, it can be anything, it's just whatever. We just wanted to do something today so that people can see how you get started and place the importance on that, using the mass band cadences, and then by doing that you can then gateway into everything, and that's it. It's kind of easy-ish, just needs a bit of practice. So thank you everybody for coming up, giving your time up. For those of you on the East Coast, it's going to be well into the afternoon now. So anyway, thanks so much. It's been a blast, and we look forward to getting things coming back from you. So don't be shy, reach out to us, and we'll, it's not a one-off thing, it's a continuous thing. If we can help in any way, we'll be happy to help you.
Any last questions? Just lots of thanks, everyone. You were absolutely very welcome, and thank you for coming and spending your time with us. This is really cool. It's very encouraging to see that we had a lot of interest in this, and it's cool. So yeah, we want to do this again for sure. This is fun for both of us. So again, if anybody has any questions or anything, just reach out to us. You can get us on Facebook, Instagram, email. Through the website takingnoshortcuts.com. We're pretty accessible and very happy to help. So yeah, we'll see you guys all on our adventures, in bagpiping and drumming and just in general. So enjoy your Saturday. For I think most everyone's in Saturday. Yeah, I think that's it. So I'm going to stop the recording now.